All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us today for today's Talk with Doc. It is my honor. I've got several wonderful men joining me today, dear friends. And today we're having, as you can tell, a dads panel where we are going to be talking with other dads, all bringing a lot of great experience. And we're just going to be talking about being dads in a family with having children with special needs, talking about many things, anywhere from how we can survive, being stay at home, and as we're coming out of stay at home, how we can encourage dads to be the best dad that they can, how we can, support our kids, how we can support our wives, and just move forward with everything. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us. We're so excited to have you with us. Let's just kind of go around, and I'd love to have everyone introduce yourselves, and I'll call you out. When you introduce yourself, let us know who you are, and then if you have any resources or anything that you can share with our families and our dads or anybody as well, share that as well as you go. So I'll just kind of go in the order I've got on my screen. So John, why don't you start? John Felageller, start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Doc. And I'm really grateful to be here as well. Hello, everybody out there in Facebook Zoom world. I'm John Felageller from lovely Highwood, Illinois, just north of the Chicago area, northern Illinois. And I do many things, as all of my other dad friends here probably do. I'm a contributing blogger and speaker for Key Ministry, contributing writer for Hope and New, contribute to the SOAR Special Needs conference as well yearly. I'm also involved with some local resources that are based out of Chicago.
Hold on just a second there.
Oh, sure. Gotcha.
We've got feedback on someone's mic. If the other guys wouldn't mind just...
I'm also involved with some local resources that are based out of Chicago.
Hold on just a second there.
Oh, sure. Gotcha.
We've got feedback on someone's... The other guys wouldn't mind just...
I'm also involved with some local resources that are based out of Chicago.
Hold on just a second there.
Oh, sure. Gotcha.
All right. We've got feedback on someone's... I don't know where that feedback's coming in. That feedback.
Now I stop.
All right,
It was Doc.
It was me. Go figure. Surprise. Gotta love that. Wow. Love it. Love it. Technical errors here at the house. That's why you don't want me running the controls. All right.
Host.
Oh yeah, you love when the host does that. That's the first for me, so I'll take that one, wear it right in me. All right, John, I apologize. Why don't you go ahead and start again, and we'll just do take two, bro.
Okay, here we go. That's fun about live TV. So again, John Felageller from Northern Illinois, outside of Chicago. I'm affiliated with Key Ministry, Hope and New, and SOAR Special Needs as the contributing writer, speaker, etc. I'm involved with several other organizations that are more local to the Chicago area. One in particular I'll kind of plug here is the Special Fathers Network, based out of Chicago, but it's a national organization. It's an arm of 21st Century Dads Foundation, and Special Fathers Network is a support group for special needs dads. A couple of things that they do specifically are they provide a mentorship program for special needs dads, so you can actually get connected with a mentor. It doesn't have to be anything, local to the Chicago area. You can have a mentor anywhere, in the country, just in terms of, Skype, Zoom, etc. Phone call, connect with somebody. There's a great list of podcasts available as well with special needs dads. We're up, I think, in the 70s or 80s now. I'm lucky to be one of them. I know Mr. Jarell down there is also a recent Special Fathers Network podcaster as well, so that's great. And Jonathan McGuire is coming up soon as well, so excited to hear. But it's a great organization. So if you look up Special Fathers Network online, we're also going to be doing, coming up very shortly here, a series of these kind of bi-weekly little Zoom conferences, specifically around a topic of interest for special needs dads. I'll be on one of those coming up this week on special needs dads meetup groups, live meetup groups. So, for example, if you're in the Chicago area and you want a special needs dad support group, live meetup, I run one of those. We'll be talking to some other guys that do that as well. And then some other topics as we go through the summer. So,
yeah, awesome. And I'd encourage, any of the dads to hook up and be a part of that network. It's a great thing. Jason, welcome.
Thanks, Doc. Nice to meet all you gentlemen. My name is Jason Hague. I am a associate pastor up in Oregon, and I'm a father of 5. And my 14-year-old Jack is on the severe end of the spectrum, and so I've been blogging about my journey with him for I guess since 2012, and so I've been blogging there at jasonhague.com. But I ended up writing a book called Aching Joy, Following God Through the Land of Unanswered Prayer, sort of sharing my spiritual and emotional journey. I think as I've gone on, that's been sort of my calling, I think, is to give words to the struggle that a lot of times us dads feel, getting very distant. I got very distant and depressed, newly around diagnosis. And so I like to help other people sort of navigate that whole process, parents, but dads especially. And so that's what I've done in my book. I also have a podcast called the Aching Joy Podcast that I just launched last month, interviewing, either parents of kids on the spectrum or just people who've gone through difficult things to try to find joy in the midst of hope. We have a young network up here in the Pacific Northwest. We started a annual conference called the All In Conference, helping ministries develop special needs, churches and ministries develop special needs ministries, et cetera. So it's great to be with you guys.
Glad to have you. Kevin, welcome.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm coming from the Midwest here, right just west of Cleveland, Ohio. My name's Kevin Molis. Well, it's kind of weird to say it. That's 16 years, and I'm a full-time eBayer, gentlemen. I sell clothing, and it started small, and God is good, and it's taken off where I'm able to support my family and be there, especially in our situation. I have 3 kids, 3 boys, and our middle son, Jaden, who is 13, also has severe autism, nonverbal, and intellectual disability. But what makes my story, I guess, a little different, and kind of the inspiration behind why I started, is I am a stepfather to Jaden. I don't ever say that unless I'm using a testimony form like this, because he's my son, right, guys? I mean, the minute you marry, they become your kids. So I just thought there weren't enough dads. And then I think coming from a stepdad perspective of, if I can do it, you guys can do it too, type mentality. So I started a YouTube channel called Autism Dada, kind of doing real talk, because I understand there's a lot of autism channels and a lot of it is female based. And I just thought, well, I'm going to be a little bit more honest, a little more blunt, and that might rub people the wrong way at times. And I understand some viewers might not like what I have to say, but I'm just trying to represent what more males think, right? And what males go through and what us guys deal with, and try to reach out to that side. But my partner in crime, my wife, Maritza, also has a podcast that we started together, the Stressless Podcast. She's written a book. So we're kind of joining together here forces little by little on our ministry. And you can find all this, like, for anyone watching, down below on my YouTube channel. Everything's posted, all the social media outlets and everything. But the main premise for everything we're doing and our focus, there's tons and tons of services for our kids and our adults underneath the special needs umbrella. But what we're focused on is the mental health of the parents, because too often we just think that gets overlooked. We hear horrible stories of suicide or taking their own kid's life. So that's kind of what inspired us originally when we started reading those stories. And that's how all of this came to fruition.
Yeah, it's awesome. If any of you have not checked out his YouTube channel, Autism Dada, it's pretty awesome. He puts out some good things, so check that out. Jonathan, brother, welcome.
All right. Great to be here. So my name is Jonathan, and my wife and I, her name's Sarah, we are founders of a nonprofit called Hope Anew. Hope Anew was born out of our own journey. We have 2 sons. Our oldest is 15. His name is Josiah, and our youngest is Jordan. When he was born, he was literally allergic to all food except for sweet potato, and he was on the severe end of the autism spectrum. We've since grown, and through that journey, we've started Hope Anew. So the goal of Hope Anew is to help parents thrive in the midst of life's challenges. So come alongside them as they work through those hard questions like, why God? How can you be a good God and allow this to happen to my child? Grief. I know what the grief cycle is, but what about chronic grief? Because every time my child doesn't reach a milestone or a peer's child does, I'm thrown back in that grief cycle. And just going through these hard questions, help them work through it, process it, and bring them ultimately to that point of hope and the hope that we have in Christ. Hope Anew, some of the services that we offer is we have a blog, we have a writing team. As John mentioned, he's on our writing team. We're glad and blessed to have him as a part of that. We have a monthly podcast, and we also have this online community. And the Hope Anew online community, the goal is that it will be a laugh together, cry together, pray together community. So that place where you can come together and say, hey, you know what? Nobody else is going to get this, but my child did this week, and I thought it was hilarious. Or, you know what? Nobody else is going to get this, but this happened this week. We had to take our child to the group home, and it's tearing my heart apart. And I just need help. And the other group's members can come say, hey, we get it. We've been through that. We've journeyed there, and come alongside each other, encourage each other, be real, pray with each other, and point to the hope again that we have in Christ. So it's great to be here.
Yeah, love it. And great services again. All right. My good friend Larry wearing one of the best shirts there are. He's sporting his Kansas City Chiefs, national world champs. Go. All right. Larry, welcome, my friend.
Thanks. It's great to be here, Doc. My name is Larry. My wife and I, we live in Maple Grove, Minnesota, a suburb of the Twin Cities. We have 3 daughters. So I like to say, I have a full-time job outside of ministry. I have a full-time job because I'm a husband, and I have a full-time job because I have 3 daughters. So I'm surrounded by women, and I love it. I am a father of daughters, and I take that as a great honor. Our youngest daughter, Carly, is 22, and she has something called Angelman syndrome. And so we've navigated the special needs gamut of emotions and processes and all of those things. And my wife and I have a ministry called Walk Right In Ministries. We really look to help connect people and families that are affected by disabilities. So often they're so disconnected, but trying to connect them, especially with Christ-believing followers, to get them the support they need. My wife and I provide all sorts of caregiver support, caregiver counseling, and I really see my role, I just like to come alongside dads, because in my experience, dads in special needs circumstances often feel a sense of disconnect, a sense of being lost and not really understanding what their role is. So trying to help those guys to see how important their role is, because so often it can revolve around moms and kids, and yet the dads just have such an important role to play, and they can't see it sometimes. But helping them to identify that role, all those roles that go up through that, and then embracing that and just seeing what an impact that can have on a family. Yes. So any resources we have are at walkrightin.org.
Yeah, awesome. All right, and then last but not least, Jarell, welcome, my friend. You're muted.
Oh. That I was trying to be a ventriloquist. I was just seeing if you guys were ready for it. I didn't know if you guys were ready. And man, Doc, good to see you again, my man. And good to see all you amazing men, precious men. I know men don't like to be called precious, but you are. And it is so good to see each of you and hear what you are doing. I got to tell you, we have a few focuses in life, but our goal is to my wife and our goal is that everything we touch just has meaning and it makes sense in our world. Meaning that what that means is everything that we do, we want it to be a hope and a help to somebody. Like that's just what we want to live and die doing in our life. And so that has allowed us to do a few things. One of those things that we've had the joy of doing is raising our kids in that and ensuring the best way that we can instill the nature and the love and care of God's kingdom into them and offer that to them and really being a God in the way that they should go. Because as my mom taught me, you can't control nobody, and she told me that when I was acting like a fool. All right. And so we just try to instill that into our kids and love our kids in that way. And I've always wanted to be a father, a teacher and a father. I get a chance to be a father of a blended household. I get a chance to be a father to two special needs kids, which is really unique in all sorts of ways because that's where I started my work journey. And so in building hope was our special needs community. And, God blessed us that way. And we're very grateful. One of the things that has spurred up in my wife and I is we created an experience-based resource called Our Gathering Place. And it's a pop-up style dining experience for families that have kids with special needs. The judgment-free zone is really the way it's meant to be. And our focus would be to plant those kind of Our Gathering Places, to really travel and plant those kind of places around the nation to empower, encourage people to do it because the dining experience is important. My wife is a chef. Eating around the table has always been important to me, to my wife. As we grew up, that was a great virtue and value, and we still uphold that today. But we also had some conflict in restaurants where our kids were yelling and screaming and jumping, and folks would give us the stink eye, and I love Jesus, but stink eye number 2 might make me, woo, Jesus, help me, Lord. And so and so in our frustration working through that, we allowed God to disciple us in a much greater fashion. And he put this idea in my heart. I shared it with my wife. Originally, we wanted to do it with vets, military vets. And so we're doing it with special needs families now. With all that has come up, we are right in the phase of launching another one in this quarter and then preparing ourselves to launch more around the nation or train people throughout the nation. Our focus is hope, though. Everything we do, we touch is hope. So we're creating a campaign called Hope Hood. Hope is the hood is the people that you do hope with. And so we stand and we fight for issues as missionaries. We stand and we fight for voices to be heard. People ask us, what do? We hope a lot. We are all about that hope and we are hope fanatics. And so we got one life to live, so we do it the best we can. That has allowed us to do multiple things, a resource for people as far as speaking goes and showing up to serve at events. We love just serving. We don't always like being up front. We love cleaning up with people and working next to people. That is just our life. Right now, we're really focusing on some of the current events happening with our Brown brothers being shot in the street. It's a real thing. And we're right now systematically trying to teach people how to care, how not to be passive, how not to gloss over, how not to look past it, but to say, you know what, I see you. I absolutely love you. And I care about you the way that we would one of our kiddos from a special needs community. And we're just teaching that. So that's what we bend our life on doing, y'all. And so Our Gathering Place is something that can be checked out online. We don't really have any plugs. We don't have podcasts. I have a Dreamcast. It's an old place. It's like an old, gaming system. And so, but everything we do, we try to convey the hope around us, and we try to show people in their best imagery, even with so much of these crazy things going on, because people are worth it. And at least that's what God said. And so I just take it to you. So that's it. That's who we are. That's what we do in a nutshell. Everything we touch, we try to spread hope through it. And we're pretty consistent as much as we can. So that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. And our Gathering Place, what they do, I've had the honor of being able to attend one of their events, and oh my gosh, I was just so blessed. It was so cool to watch, and they're up in the Omaha, Nebraska area, and very, very cool. So especially any of our families up around Omaha, Lincoln area, you guys need to check Jarell and them out there with our gathering place. Well, guys, one of the first things I want to kind of kick things off, and before we get too far, anyone on Zoom that's here with our webinar and those on Facebook Live, if you've got any questions as we're going on Zoom, you can put them in the Q&A or in the chat. And on Facebook Live, you can put them in the comments, and our dads will be answering those questions as we go. But, I want actually Larry kind of hit on some of the first part I want to get with, and that, as dads, and when you first become a special needs dad, it's a hit in the gut. And there's grief with it because you lose that dream that you had for your child, and everything changes, and that's just the way it is. One of the first things as a dad that we have to realize, and as we go through life now as a parent of a child with special needs, is we have to learn that we're no longer in control, and there's nothing we just can't, and it's something we can't fix. And especially, men, so many times as dads, we want to constantly be the ones there who can fix things, rah, I can do this, I can make it right. But this is something we can't do that. And so just would love to throw out to you guys, how would you talk to dads and challenge them and encourage them through this time, especially right now as, it's so frustrating. We're coming out, we're from all over the country. We've got multiple different, coming out of the stay at home, but COVID has really added a lot more stress to things. We're trying to be dads, we're trying to work, but all of a sudden now we're also the principal of our, homeschooling. We're the teacher of it, and all these extra things we've never done before, which is adding multiple things. And again, we're feeling all these things we're not in control and we can't fix it, but we need to find our role. Throw it out to you guys. How can we encourage our dads and finding their role and finding their spot? Go ahead, John.
So I've got a little added perspective to that. So I'll just add, as much as you just communicated, I'm going to add one more layer onto it, as some of the guys in the group know that I'm actually also recently divorced. Yeah. So if you add being a father and a special needs father and a divorced special needs single dad and COVID, there's a lot, right? And I'll tell you that certainly some of my frustrations, like some of you guys have been, is, your kids have been home since maybe middle of March. And now all of a sudden, mom and dad become teachers. Well, here's the thing. I was a teacher for years before I moved into my current role, working for a nonprofit. My ex-wife is still a teacher. But even being a teacher, you're still frustrated because now you have to do this in a whole different way. We've had to do therapy at home, so like ABA, speech stuff, that kind of thing. And you're trying to, Zoom a therapist on one screen and iPad on another. And, it's not your wheelhouse, right? So one thing that I actually wrote a blog about this a couple months ago for Key Ministry, and we did a little video on it too. I came up because, teachers like to always have these hokey ways of remembering things and learning things. So I came up with 3 C's, okay? So my 3 C's were this: communication, coordination, and compassion. Now, why communication? Because first of all, even if your family is intact, you and your wife are getting along great, but still you may be working from home, whether that's one of you or both of you, kind of a thing. And, you still have to figure out, how are you doing life? Who is helping with the e-learning? Who's helping with this? Who's supporting them here? That type of thing. And then who needs that work time legitimately? Because if you're work from home, you still work from home, right? In my case, for example, because now you're going between 2 different homes, that communication piece becomes even more vital, because it's, hey, listen, okay, we're stuck at home now. Now those meltdowns maybe increase a little bit more, or maybe I'm seeing some new behaviors or different behaviors. I know one story I like to tell with that too is, I dropped him off one weekend when this all started, and it was just as I dropped him off that the bulletin came through from the Illinois governor's office that the next day all the restaurants and coffee shops, everything was closed. So I literally pulled the car over. I got on the phone. I'm like, listen, this just came through on the radio. This is a problem. Why? Because the kid likes to go eat out. Now we can't do that. So better come up with a plan. Let's work that out. Then that also lends into the coordination piece, right? So how are you also then building in those structures? How are you making sure that each one of you also too is doing that self-care and really kind of niching out that piece of self-care for you? So it's not just the work. It's not just helping the kids with their school stuff or therapy. It's, okay, when are you getting a break? When are you going for a walk? What else do you need? In my case, you know, I've offered to take my son extra time during the week so that my ex can have a break. Even though I'm still work from home, I'm like, well, you're work from home too. So let's work it out. Let's both have some grace. And then of course that leads into the compassion piece. You know, we have to be willing to be very gentle with each other because we're all cooped up. We're all stressed out. You know, things are going to be said. Things are going to happen. Have compassion, you know, for your partner. Have compassion for your spouse. Even though she's now my ex-wife, I still have compassion for her as my child's mother. I still want to be giving and gracious and show grace because, as I also like to say, at some point, as we're starting to see, all of this is going to go back to normal. You know, it might not be all at once and, you know, there's a plan in place or whatever based on your state region. But, you know, how do we want to show up on the other side of this? What do we want to look like? How are we presenting ourselves? Are we really being the Christian men, husbands, and leaders that we want to be? Are there things we're going to regret having said and done? You know, so I think we need to remember that compassion and grace piece also too, that, you know, we're all under a lot of it, you know, but we also remember our higher calling and purpose, and let's see if we can also keep our eyes pointed to that too.
Absolutely. That's great. All right. Anyone else? Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I want to touch on one of the first things you brought up, and actually, Jason, you mentioned it too. And I'm not even joking. I just recorded this video in my car. Every once in a while, I do a real talk where I see something on social media and it just hurts my heart, and I just feel like God's using me to spit something out. And it was about the dream, right? The dream life that you lose. And again, this goes back to the mental health. What we try to focus on is you have to understand it's okay to grieve and it's okay to mourn. You have to do those first. And that was the whole concept of the video. Is too often I see parents hold on to that too long with the denial, with the guilt. Is it my fault? Whatever it may be. For my own personal story, again, I was the stepdad. Jaden's 3 years in, and his father was talking about him playing softball and football to people in public. And obviously that wasn't something Jaden was going to be doing ever. And it was, you know, but he dealt with it a certain way. And I can't emphasize enough to parents, once you break through that grieving and that mourning, then it's only going to help you as a parent be better off, but it's also going to get the ball rolling for your child with the services, with everything. You're going to have a better life all around for your household, the mental health. John, what you were just talking about, with being divorced, the divorce rate in our society is high enough. But when you talk about divorce rate in a special needs family, it jumps up almost to the 90 percentile. From my wife's studies, I'm not taking claim on that, but that's what I heard from her. So I just think being upfront and honest, I don't think it's weak. Like I just look at it in the videos. I'm not trying to be cold-hearted here, people, but you have to say that life's gone. The picket fence and the 2.5 kids is gone, and someone needs to let these younger parents know. If we have to be those people or play the bad guy role, I look at it as I'm just trying to be real, and I wish I knew that 10 years ago, right? I wish I had someone telling me that. So that's kind of what's on my heart. I feel like God uses me in those ways. Like if I knew now what I knew then, right, guys? Like those types of things. So that is just something you said about the life lost. But it's not the end of the world, because last thing, it's still your kid, right, guys? Like pre-diagnosis, post-diagnosis, it's still your kid. Like love on them. Sure, your life has changed, but you can figure out a new normal, right? A new type of lifestyle, and you just got to adjust. And too many people go down that rabbit hole of darkness with the mindset. So that's it.
We got to remember that God created our kids on purpose and for a purpose. They're created in the image and likeness of God. They are no mistake. And we've got to embrace that and help them realize that as well. So absolutely.
And we really, as men, we want to control things, but when we get right down to it, I have about the same amount of control with my youngest daughter over her life ever since she was born as I did with my older two daughters. And that was about this, you know, and sometimes I want to convince myself that I can control all these things. And that's a pipe dream. And it's not something I need to control. And I think that's where we have to take a step back and say, let's control what we can control. And that's not everything. And most importantly, we got to start with ourselves. You know, any house that's not built on a strong foundation is going to crumble. And ultimately, our foundation's got to be Jesus Christ. But then the foundation is me as a dad. I got to provide that stability. I got to step in, even in places where I don't feel like I can control or I don't really know what my role is. But if I can keep my head and keep calm and just provide that steady guidance and support, my wife does better, my kids do better, and ultimately I do better. But oftentimes it's also not about doing, it's about being. You know, it's being with our wives, being with our kids. You know, Carly, I call it inductive charging. She cuddles up next to me and she can be all stressed out, and within, 10 to 15 minutes, you feel her countenance change. You feel her relax. You feel her getting more under control. And that's something that I can provide. So that's something that I can provide some level of control in. But we often put too much pressure on ourselves too, I think.
Yeah, good points.
Yeah, I think putting too much pressure on ourselves, I think that's a really good way to put it. I think a lot of times we see sort of from a distance, like we want to be positive. We want to reach acceptance, in the grieving process. But you can't jump to it. And I think that's a mistake I tried to make for a long time, is like, I know the right answers here. I know what I need to get to. I know Jack is a gift from God. I know this. I want to celebrate who he is. But the only way to get there is to start by saying, okay, well, here's what I got. I'm really, really sad. Like this is crushing me, or I'm angry, or I have all these questions. And I think as dads, as men, we don't want to do that. We don't want to start there. We want to jump to the right answer. And so I think it's super important for us to own up to exactly where we are, to God and to other people. I was just with a friend yesterday, just telling him, man, this has been such a hard season with COVID, and with Jack's been having a really rough time. And he said, you got to release it up and out. And I thought, man, that's exactly right. We have to, to come back there over and over again. Lord, this is hard. I'm going to tell you what's hard about it, even if it feels like complaining, because we've got to give it to him, right? Like that's how you give it to him, is by telling him all the things that he already sees. So Lord, this is really, really hard. I'm sad. I'm upset. So please help me through this. And then to speak it out to other brothers and sisters, counselors, or who maybe just a trusted friend, but to be able to go through that process in order to get to the place where we want to be, where we can be the father that we know our kids need. That starts with our own humility.
I'm going to go off with what Jason said there. That's exactly right, because we all deal with our grief at our own rates, And when we say, hey, I'm just going to jump to this point, that's not dealing with your grief. That's called burying the issues. When we bury the issues, what happens is it's going to come back later, and it's going to jump at and physical problems, mental health problems, and other elements. I've worked with the families that have done that. So totally get what you're saying, Kevin, and I do agree we can be stuck in our grief, but we also need to be willing to work through the grief, and don't feel guilty if it takes longer than what we think it should. If we see, because we're going to have the pastors, we're going to have our friends coming up to us and saying, you're still struggling with that. And the reality is that, no, you might be struggling with it for a long time. If you're in that place, don't feel guilty about it, but accept it and work through it, or keep working through it. It's not going to be a one and done process. You might think, hey, I conquered this grief thing and I have the new dream, but then we get to this next transition in life, or where the next transition in life should happen, and we're back in the middle of it full force. So yeah, yeah, I love what you guys said, what you're saying so far, and just want to add that little bit in there.
Cool.
I would say one thing that has really encouraged me is scenarios like this, and it may not be online, but it's really being able to sit next to fathers or even adults that have had special needs and hear from them and humanize this thing again, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes the statistics and sometimes the story that we read or that we see, man, it's a powerful insight, but it's hard to humanize. And I need to be able to look across the table or across the way or from the stage and see my brother humanizing this thing and the honesty and the authenticity, so that I can measure and know, oh yeah, we're okay. And oh yeah, that's what that means. That actually helps me. That disciples me. It tutors me. And it also encourages me to know, like, and to see is, and I don't want to sound cliche, to know that I'm not the only one. And we know that, right? But sometimes you can begin to get so isolated because it's just you. You're just their dad, you know? And then you feel this pressure like you guys were describing. One thing that's really shaped my value system is, like, no kidding, is like prayer. Like, for real. Like, praying for my children, like, man, almost every day. I'm not like, I ain't that all that, so I be missing stuff. But like almost every day, praying when I'm with them, speaking over them, correcting myself as a father, like, God, you really want to tutor me in this moment. You reminded me of this moment when I was apart from my kid. Here goes this moment again, and you're discipling me. How can I just capture it one piece at a time and live according to your will? Because I know if you're teaching me and I'm doing it, I'm in line with you, and I'm caring for your children the way that you want them cared for, because we're all kids, right? And like that has been helping me in the process. It's helped me to slow down. It's helping me with my temperament, because sometimes I default to certain behaviors, and God is like, I got more for you than that, you know, like, and I'm taking those cues from him, and that's helping me, because that contact and that face-to-face time, that engagement time, is really essential to me. It means so much to me. And I've learned to value it. I take it and I internalize it and I think about it. I process it and I put it back in front of God, and then I do it again. And I find so much reward in that, because then I feel like I'm really discipling my children now. I feel like I'm really growing with my kids now. I feel like I'm taking less of that role as a father off of me, and more as a guide to my children, because nothing's going to change the fact that I'm their dad. Nothing, you know? So then it's like, what do I do in that moment that is helping to continually shape us? And that honesty, that failure, apologizing to my kids, missing it, going, oh, my bad, I blew that one. And then also taking the time to go, we got this. Teach me, show me, what does that look like? And being patient enough to allow them to walk through it, even though I know they're about to totally spill that, you know, like, and that's changing my heart, because now I get to love them like God. I feel like God loves us, and that's been helping me. I feel outnumbered. I feel outmanned. I feel outgunned, and I've worked with kids. Like, it's my whole life, you know, my whole working career was with kids. And now all of a sudden I have this personal, in-depth, like, real-time, intuitive relationship. And man, I love that. And that's helped me to fall in love with my kids. It's helped me to enjoy the father experience, even when I can miss it. And it's helping me to go, yeah, let's get back up again, because there's a father that's totally leading me and holding it down and teaching me and giving me a moment again. And I'm loving a champion. Our kids made it. They made it from other moms. Come on. They're champions. Our kids they're born champions. They're born winning, you know? And so we're now in partnership with these kids. And the thing that is kind of like messing my thinking up again is, like, people, when they're not harsh, they love our kids, like, almost unconditionally. They'll walk right past us and be like, look at this amazing kid. And I'm like, oh, wow, how can I get that? Because I'm like, how can I constantly see my kid? How can I see society like that? God, how can I receive that from you? And man, that's totally making me want to partner with these kids and go, let's do life, yo. Like, oh my goodness, we're winners, we're here. And like, let's do this together. And like, so this is really helping me, guys. This is really a blessing. This is really a blessing.
We got a great question that came in on our Facebook Live that I want to throw out to you guys. And one of the question basically is, what kinds of things encourage or bolster you guys? It comes from, talking with a lot of moms who struggle and know how they can help help you feel supported and confident and encouraged as a special needs dad. So how can moms and your wives come along and help encourage you, bolster you as the dad, as the leader in the house? As I know it's so often we see dads feeling like they're not involved as much with the care and don't know what to do, and you see that separation. We don't want that. So great question. How can moms help in bringing you in, encourage you, and having you be a part of that? Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I was just saying, anyone? I didn't know who wanted to go first.
Yeah.
Well, I think us men, words are powerful. A sign of respect. If you show respect and love and encourage us. But I will because I know some of the guys will probably cover other topics. But I'm going to go a curveball on this. And what I've seen and what I've heard, a lot of stories that really work are, again, us as men like to keep stuff inside. Us as men think we can figure this all out. And a lot of times that's why men, sadly, are the ones that are walking away more often than not, as in this special needs community. So I encourage you, if you're a wife, to talk to other men, just like we're doing right here and right now, because that's how they're going to relate more. And I know a lot of men internalize stuff and they keep it inside and they can't really, or at least the guys I've talked to regarding this. And it's as simple as just sitting down and talking to someone else who gets you, right? Like Jarell, you were talking about it. I understand. Like once you meet someone from that world, I get it. I understand what you go through and you don't feel so alone. And a lot of it is all up in our minds. And just for that, I know there's a ton of different areas and directions we can go, but I just know talking to other men, because that is rare. And it hurts my heart to say that, but I just have witnessed, at my son's school over how many years, I sit in a parking lot and I see almost all moms. And of course, a lot of the dads are working, but when I find out how many men are missing in the picture, it just breaks my heart. And I just think if there was a better camaraderie, communication, groups, forums like this, they realize that they can do it too. They can find that inner strength and lean on God when times get tough. But that's it. I know it was kind of a random right turn there, but that just popped in my head.
Oh, good.
One of the reasons I like that is because as a father, it's hard for me to take the time for myself to go out and be with our guys and go spend that time. I at home with homeschooling, with taking care of kids, figuring out medical, everything else going on. And for me to want to take time to do a hobby, to do something, to go talk to another group of men, I don't feel the freedom to do that. So to have my spouse say, hey, you know what? Why don't you just go spend the time with the guys tonight? I know you could use the time too.
Okay.
Why don't you go talk to this? I know that the stuff's on your heart. Go for it. So I love what you're saying there. Another thing I want to add to that is learn what his love language is. There's a great book out called 5 Love Languages for Special Needs Parents. Jolene Philo and Dr. Gary Chapman just put that out last fall, I believe. And it's an excellent book. So learn what communicates love, what communicates respect to your spouse. And it's going to be different for all of us, And so become a student of your spouse and learn what that is. And that'd be huge.
Yeah, and building on that, it depends on a guy's temperament too. Like for me, I need relationships, but I really only need a handful of deep relationships. That's the desire of my heart. So going to some 30-person group is like, I don't want to do that. I want to hang out with a group of guys like that's here and be real and know that I can be real. So some of it depends on a guy's temperament. One of the things that encourages me that my wife does is that she will frequently give me encouragement and tell me what I'm doing well. And when she does that for me, that just makes me want to do more things well, you know. Probably my wife, you know, she's the mother of me to a certain extent too. You know, my emotional age is younger or whatever than our wives often they are, but she encourages me in that, and that causes me to want to go farther, because we want to protect our families, right? We want to be that warrior. We want to be that guy that gets the victory. And when she encourages me like that and does it in a specific way, it breathes fresh wind into my sails.
I oftentimes think, and I can just speak from my own perspective as a male, and just having to do life with like all sorts of genres of male, from military to business men to missionaries to those that have been in the disability community to those that are fighting for civil justices to straight males to gay. Like, you see so much. And this is what I want to say. I think you all have nailed it right on the head. And Larry, he took it another notch, and he just says, men want to know what they're doing well, because we are often told in society the things that we know are wrong. We have these perpetual images that we look at and we're like, we know they're wrong, and they're the loudest voices sometimes. But then there is this blame factor in society that we don't get anything. There's this predisposed notion that we don't get anything, that we're off because our quietness is ignoring and our quietness is passiveness. And like, dudes are so deep, dudes are so emotional. Like, we have chromosomes that they come from us into the woman. And like, we just got to understand that. Like, men are so amazing and passionately dope, and they want to contribute. And when they feel like they're understood, they will show up because it lights something in them that there is a work to do. And when they don't, they will go find work elsewhere, because work was put in us before the relationship with another person was. It was us, God, and work. And like, when you understand the origin and what is in our DNA from long history, where we are not understood or valued, or where we are sometimes marginalized. And I'm not trying to talk to our defense. It is real, y'all. Like, I see it in all sorts of pockets where we are marginalized and sometimes disenfranchised from a relational community. Men don't know how to relate. That's what we're told. Then if we're not told that we're how to relate, we're going to go find something to relate to. And it typically looks like work. And so the moment you try to come in that work and you don't understand it, you criticize it, and we're like, ugh, that's what I relate to. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but when we are invited into a relationship, not to talk, but to relate, like as men, how men relate. And when we show we have this valid posture and point of view at the table over and over again, as long as it takes, because we're willing to provide as long as it takes. Even if we're divorced, we will provide. Even if we will provide, we will show up, right? So when we have that over and over again, I think the way God would do for us, you'll see us show up in a different fashion. You'll see us show up with a confidence, not just because we can do it, but because we're welcome to do it. We're invited to do it. And when we're invited to do it, we're like a boy, we're like a man, but we're like a boy that's willing to take risks. Like, I'm dirty, but everybody else, okay, all right, everybody allows them, all right, we're good, all right. And I believe when I see men in those societies that are thriving because they're accepted, they're understood, they're valued, and they're welcomed at the table to relate, not to talk, to relate, then all of a sudden, these men, you see communities like perpetually growing. You see communities where people feel secure. You see communities where men know who they are. They may not know everything, but they're confident, and that says something. You know, you see societies where men are not passive, they're assertive. They admit that they don't know things, but they're willing to show up to learn again.
You muted yourself. All right.
And I think that's what it's about. Oh, sorry, did I just get bleeped out? Somebody was calling in. I didn't, but I just say, when you create a place of confidence for men, they show up, they appear, and they're so precious and valuable, and they're so needed in society. And none of us get here without men. Think about that. That's how powerful it is. None of us, even as fathers, none of us are here without a man. And he has something to contribute. He was made to actually give. And when we create an invitation for it, watch him go. Oh boy, come on. Come on.
Yeah, that's so good. We're kind of, I think we could probably talk for another hour on things, and we're getting several comments from people just appreciating everybody's vulnerability. But as I want to appreciate everyone's time, and we're coming up on the top of the hour. I just want to throw out one final question for each of you to answer us for us, and that would be, what would be your one charge or one encouragement or one thing that you would throw out to dads out there in today, in being the best father that they can for their child with special needs? What is that one charge that you would throw out and say, whatever it might be with that? So whoever wants to start off, you can.
Well, I'll jump in there. So I always like to bring it down again with my teacher brain. I call it a 1A, 1B conversation. 1A is your faith. It starts out with your faith. So you have to remember, again, as a lot of guys have talked to today, remember what your foundation is in God and Christ. Remember that ultimately, regardless of what you face, that's what's going to push you through. I may not be in a relationship with my wife anymore, but I'm still in a relationship with my God. And he commands me to still be a great man, period, in general, but specifically for my son. And to remember that my son is still my son. He's, there might be some things that it might be different in terms of the relationship and the dynamic of the family, but he's still mine. I still have responsibility to be dad in the ways that I can be dad. So again, also going back to this idea that your son is still your son, that never changes, and we're just going to keep going with that. But 1B is community. And as we've all been discussing, and Jarell just kept hitting on right there, you cannot do this alone. You've got to find a community, whatever that community is. Might be an online, even after all this COVID is over, might be an online community, might be guys that you don't physically see, or at least not all the time, might be a group that you kind of partner with. But you need someone to walk with. You need someone to talk to. You need somebody to be vulnerable with. That's why Special Fathers Network is a great thing, because if it's somebody that you don't even want to look at, you can just pick up a phone or whatever it is. But community is key. And again, it's not always instinctual for guys, as we've also been kind of hitting on too, but that's where men in these roles specifically need to have an awareness that we need to let the guard down a little bit. We need to open up a little bit more, kind of let the light creep into that doorway a little bit and say, okay, I'm at least willing to show up, share to whatever degree I'm comfortable, and at least know that there's somebody out there who gets it, gets me, and can be there for me when the really hard time comes. So.
Yeah, good. Great. Thank you.
I was reminded here in the last couple of weeks, every one of us has a gift. And as we look at the Bible, as we look at Scripture, it tells us that clearly, and it doesn't have that little exception clause in there that says everyone except for those with disability, or everyone except those with special needs has a gift. Right. So this is look at your child and just study what are their gifts. God has given them special gifts that unlike any other person has. It's easy to get caught up in the negative, not see those positive things. But yeah, strive to overcome looking at the negative, and I know it might take time to get there, and start looking for what the gifts that your child has.
Very good. Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm going to piggyback, because that's pretty much, Jonathan, what you just said. To me, it's perspective, right? It's all about changing how we we look at our child instead of just going straight to the negative, woe is me, I cannot do this. There's no way I can do this. That's not how this works if you want to be a successful parent with a neurotypical child or with a special needs child. I just think it's simple as just turning your perspective, day by day, little things, like Jonathan was talking about. And I now realize in my journey that my son is teaching me more than I'll ever be to teach him. And he has been the blessing I've always been asking God for. And again, he's not even my biological son, but God works in that way where he put him in my blueprint. And I realize now I am doing a ministry I always wanted to do. And it's not because of me. It's because of my son. And sometimes we're so simple-minded. We're so small-minded. God knows, he just laughs at us. I'm sorry, but he does. We are way too simple-minded, guys, right? And we think one thing and something else is going to happen. And when these things happen at the beginning, our flesh screams and we get so caught up. But little by little, I just think men out there, they tend to go a certain direction with their mindset. But I just think if you can slowly change your perspective and focus on all the beauties and all the wonderful things, as hard as that might be in the heat of a moment, right? With a meltdown or something, I get it. I just think that is what has helped me the most. And we even have things hanging on all throughout our house on that exact topic of all the wonders, that we have in our kids and that God has instilled in them. And we're blessed. We're blessed.
Amen.
I think, for me, it all often comes back to what's your role. And if I have a dad in front of me who's struggling, I encourage that man to figure out what is your role here. Because as Jarell said, we're often we're disenfranchised. We allow circumstances to dictate. It seems like everybody else has a role here, but I don't. But discover what your role is in your relationship with your family, with your wife, with your kids. What's your role? What do you provide? So find your role, understand your role. What does it mean? And then embrace that role and charge forward. Take that hill, get the W, do whatever you can to fulfill that role because God's given it to you. And you may not see it. It may not be as easily defined as other people's are, but it's there and it's incredibly important.
Amen.
I would say to practice celebrating the small victories.
Oh, yeah.
In our kids, and I know we parents, in this community really emphasize small victories, but not only for your kid, but for yourself as well as a dad, because you'll end up feeling in over your head, probably completely inept because you can't fix it and all of those things, right? And I think it's so important for us to go, you know what? Okay, I haven't figured this out yet. In a lot of ways, man, I'm drowning. But I took a walk with my son today and we connected for like 5 minutes. And that is something, to celebrate those small victories, those small connections, and to take them as real, to say, okay, I am not completely inept. I can do this with God's help and my wife's help and the help of other people. We can do this. And I'm not going to fail as long as I just keep on going.
That's good. Jarell.
I would say to listen to what every other guy said. Done. I would say that as an encouragement, awareness matters. And I say this oftentimes, especially with our groups of men, the only thing God ever named after himself was a father. The only thing he ever named after himself out of all that he made was a father. And you're just like your father. And it's so worthy. It's such a worthy effort to say, Father, how do I father just like you? Because you want something for them that I can't even begin to fathom. And when we get that, we get to love God with all our heart, soul, and strength, and we get to love our neighbor, our children, as ourselves. Then we see how he loves us. We see how he nurtures us. And that awareness, when we can live out of that, that's his presence. That's the best place to be. That's the best place to be as a father, is with your father, where we can be boys and men, where we can be the rebel and you know, and the headache all at the same time. And he gets it, he knows it, he made it, and he named you after himself. Second thing, put that in your soul. When you get those, I'm writing, man. I'm listening to you guys because I respect you guys. I'm writing, and you get this stuff and you declare it till it rewires something in our mind of Christ. And because what a man thinks he becomes. What a man thinks he becomes. I know that's for everybody, mankind. But men, hear me out, fathers, what you think you become. And if you want to be a good father, you speak it until the action becomes louder than it.
So good. You know, and for me, just in closing, Kevin, you stole mine. My word's perspective. And I'm going to go ahead and take that again. And it's good. We're all good. But I just want to encourage fathers to really hold on to that word and really think about that. You know, the time we're in right now with COVID, this is temporary. It's not going to last forever. And we're going to get out of this. I don't think we're going to go completely back to normal, but we're going to have a new normal, and that's okay. You know, it's no different than what 9/11 was. We had a new normal after that, but guess what? That's what we call normal now, and we don't even think about it. Well, it's going to be the same thing as we move forward, but that's okay. But what I want you to remember is even when things are going wrong, even when things are bad, get your perspective. Think through things and look at the positive things. You know, I can't tell you the number of parents I've talked to who sit there and they complain to me about how horrible things are being a parent and how bad things are. And, I just can't handle one more meltdown or this or that. And my response to them is, you know what? I want to encourage you for perspective. Because for me, as a dad, I would do anything to have one more temper tantrum by my son. But I'm never going to have that because my son's been in heaven now for 9 years. I would do anything for that. It's perspective. We can't dwell on all the negative going on in our life. We've got to be finding the positive. And, you know, everything I'm doing is all because of what a little ornery redheaded boy taught me in everything. You know, he had 30 total words of vocabulary, but because of him is why SOAR exists and what we're doing here and why we're meeting today and encouraging other families. Learn and see what your kids can teach you. It is powerful what they can do, and having God help you through that, oh my gosh, put that together and you truly can move mountains. So, you know, dads, thank you so much, men, for joining us today. Dads out there who are listening, you can do it. Be the man that God has called you to be. Step up and lead the family. Don't run. Stay. Be there. Lock arms with your family and help them. You can do it. If you need help, we're all here to help you. Reach out to us. You can contact us at SOAR, and I'll put you in touch with any of these men, and I know they'd all love to talk with you, but we are here for you, and we want to help out. Moms that have seen this, please sit down with your husbands and let them watch this. They need to see it. We'll be getting this up on our YouTube page here later this afternoon, so it'll be real easy to share, but make sure it goes out to everybody. Share it with your family and friends. Let everyone see it, but we need to get this word out. We need to get dads involved and know that they can do it, and it's fine that you're not in control, but you'll do fine. You don't need to be in control because we're not the ones in control. God is. And when we let go and let God, everybody wins and our family wins, and it's all good. So we got to remember that. Next week, our Talk with Doc, I'm super excited about. I'm going to have multiple disability leaders, ministry leaders from all over the country in, and we are going to be talking about how to lead in the new normal. Doing disability ministry after COVID here is going to be completely different. And so we're going to be talking through what that looks like. How should we start ministry back up as we're starting to open churches again? So make sure you join us next week. That'll be a huge thing. Also, we're going to be watching us. We've got some big announcements about our camp coming up this next week. It'll be great. And so look for you to all be checking that out. Also, if you'd like to partner with us, we would love to have you partner with us, help keep our webinars going and anything we're doing. If you want to partner financially, you can go to SOAR specialneeds.com/donate and do that. But men, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor to spend the last hour with you. I wish we could spend a lot more, but you all, thank you. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate this and how encouraging it's been. We've gotten all kinds of love from, Facebook is going crazy. A lot of people are really appreciating your transparency and what you're doing. And so know you guys are all loved and we love having you. So thank you so much, men. Appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all later.
Love you, Doc.
All right.
God bless.
Peace.
You man.